Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld podcast. It is the 21st of July and it is Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. In today's topic, Iran to launch a gold-backed cryptocurrency. That's one of the stories we're going to be covering. We're also going to be taking a look at some gold stories out of Venezuela. We're going to take a look also at the latest gold reserve numbers coming out of Russia for the Central Bank of Russia. And there was a gold confiscation at Heathrow Airport worth $5 million. So let's get into this Iranian story. Now, Iran, as you know, is under sanctions from the United States. They booted out of the SWIFT system. Normally, that would mean they could not conduct commerce because if you're using the dollar, if you want to make international transactions, the SWIFT system is the way to go. Now, there is an alternative system the Chinese have set up. Russians are setting up one, but the main one that countries use is the SWIFT system. And the United States can use that as a disincentive for countries that want to remain on the good side of the United States. They don't want to be tossed out of the SWIFT system. Now, with technology, the SWIFT system was probably state-of-the-art 15, 20, 30 years ago, but now with peer-to-peer transactions, cryptocurrencies, it becomes less of a essential facility. It's the dollar that's the essential facility. Remember, it's the dollar tied to the SWIFT system that makes it the essential facility and the way of transacting. Now, this story, I can't vouch for it because they claim it's from, I read a couple of stories, they say it comes from the Iranian or Tehran news service, which I would imagine is blocked in the United States, so I can't see it. But the story here is one of many, but they're all from websites you probably never heard of. That doesn't mean they're not true, and it doesn't mean because something comes from Reuters or AP that it is true. I'm just giving you the context of which this story comes out. Iran announces gold-backed national cryptocurrency, and then I did some searching and I found a couple of other stories and some quotes, so I'll give you for what they're worth. But I will say that it's not surprising that a country that is under sanctions, can't use the dollar, is looking for ways to transact in ways it doesn't use the SWIFT system, doesn't use the dollar. And the issue with using just gold is gold itself is clunky. It has to be delivered. And also there's a concept of the gold trade note, which is basically a cryptocurrency. Is just an update on the gold trade note where you agree to deliver gold, or you agree just to have a situs of where the gold is and then the ownership changes, similar to what they have at the Federal Reserve in New York. There are many countries in the world who, for whatever reason, still keep some gold in the New York Fed, and the idea is that that gold, if they wanted to sell it, may just move from one pallet to another. Not quite sure how the mechanics of a gold-backed Iranian cryptocurrency would work, but here's the story that this is from Asia Crypto Today. The Tehran news agencies reported that Iran intends to launch a gold-backed cryptocurrency. And it says, according to this one, says the Central Bank of Iran, and I'm going to read another story. It says it comes from the Tehran news agency, has approved the issuance of cryptocurrencies. And it says that this guy, CEO of Iranian Information and Communication, his name is Shabib Javan Maradi, says Iran's cryptocurrency will be supported by gold, but its function is similar to other cryptocurrencies. The crypto asset is designed to maximize use of Iranian foreign bank assets. Now, this all makes sense that cryptocurrencies are now providing a way for countries and individuals to bypass intermediaries like the SWIFT system or like the bank. The idea of cryptocurrencies is that they're peer-to-peer, and essentially now you can digitize anything. Now, certain cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, they're not, quote, backed by anything, no physical commodity, but you can also issue tokens, cryptocurrencies that are backed by any number of items. It could be gold, they could be silver, they could be tea, they could be oil, and it would make sense that Iran couldn't issue just the on-faith cryptocurrency and saying this represents the Iranian rial, which in itself would not be attractive. That'd be like Venezuela issuing a cryptocurrency representing the bolivar. Who would want it? But if they can say it's representing a certain amount of gold, then it might have some traction. So this is what they're saying that they're going to put out, or what stories are saying that they're going to put out. They might already be doing something. Who knows what exactly is going on? It says, however, the government is urged to retain its policy on limiting Bitcoin in Iran. So it's the same thing with many countries like India. They're all in favor of, quote, cryptocurrencies, but they're not in favor of private cryptocurrencies, private decentralized cryptocurrencies. They're more in favor of digitizing the rupee or digitizing some assets in the country, or as we see certain private companies now want to, like Facebook, issue things like Libra, which would be a centralized cryptocurrency. Now remember, that takes away the advantage and the security of a decentralized cryptocurrency, but it does have the advantage of a central issuer, and it does have the advantage that, in a sense, it competes with other central issuers of other currencies like the dollar. Now, let me see, there's another story here. For what it's worth, they quote the same guy in this story. This is from MEHRN News. Sharab Tavaramardi said, the Indian cryptocurrency is mined in accordance with the agreements of the Central Bank of Iran. This one says that this money will be mined under the permission of the Central Bank of Iran, hasn't yet to be unveiled. It says it's backed by gold, but its function is similar to foreign rivals. I think there's some language translation lost there. Then it says the domestically encrypted money is easy to use, optimal use of Iranian banks' frozen resources. So there it is. I'm not surprised, but let's go over and take a look at what Venezuela has done. Now, Venezuela has tried this, and even though it's supposedly their cryptocurrency is backed by oil, really hasn't had much traction. And we've also seen the cryptocurrency that Venezuela issued, the Petro, was immediately struck down, so to speak, by the United States, by Trump issuing an executive order blocking U.S. citizens from trading or financing the Venezuelan cryptocurrency. I'm not sure why anyone would really want to do that other than for speculative purposes. Now, you got to remember with sanctions, here's how I look at sanctions. They prohibit, the sanctions that are in place on Iran, Venezuela, they prohibit United States people, allies, Venezuela itself from utilizing certain systems of the United States, like the SWIFT system. Absent military force or embargoes, you really can't stop Venezuela from trading with other countries other than putting pressures on those countries or issuing their own currencies. All you can do is prohibit U.S. citizens or try to coerce U.S. allies not to transact in the gold-backed Iranian rial or the oil-backed Venezuelan petro, but you can't really stop them. It's like everyone comes to your house for a party, and then you say that person can't come to your house anymore. But doesn't mean that that person can't go to other parties. It just means they're not allowed in your house where the real party is actually happening. So Trump issued an executive order prohibiting, and that really doesn't hurt Venezuela, because I doubt the market for the petro, the Venezuelan petro, was to attract U.S. investment. But Trump did issue an executive order, and I think that was back in March when they launched the cryptocurrencies, and it was banning transactions within the United States involving any digital currency issued by the government of Venezuela. I would imagine that goes without saying that the same thing would happen to any Iranian gold-backed cryptocurrency. You won't be allowed to trade it. Basically, it's contraband, and I suppose you can be arrested for it. It says any transaction, this is from the order itself, that evades or avoids, has the purpose of evading or avoiding, cause a violation, or attempts to violate any of the prohibitions set forth in this order is prohibited. I'm not sure if executive orders actually give. They don't actually prescribe what the penalty is. There's no fine amount. There's no jailing amount. Can't really find anything in the order itself. I looked through the whole thing, but the idea is that it's a blanket prohibition, but which is really meaningless because Venezuela and Iran are not issuing these cryptocurrencies in order for Americans to trade in them. All right, now we've also seen what's happened in Venezuela, and I don't know how successful this has been, but they have also opened up a remittance site whereby you can send into Venezuela Bitcoin and Litecoin. That was announced on Smaulgld a few months ago. And let me see if I can find, in addition to things like local Bitcoins, which have nothing to do with the government is actually sanctioning, here it is, sanctioning a remittance site where the government takes a cut, where you can send Bitcoin and Litecoin through. It's called Patria Remesas, and you define who you're sending it to. This way the government can see. It's a form of control over cryptocurrencies. So instead of going through local Bitcoins or Venezuelan mining Bitcoins, this is a way the government knowing where the money is coming from, who it's going to. But again, you can see here at the top, Bitcoin rate, Litecoin rate. This is a while back when Litecoin was $55 and Bitcoin was $3,800. This was just a few months ago. But you can see this is other examples of this. Here's a bigger picture of it. You give the exchange rate. So fully, I wouldn't say sanctioned, not sanctioned, fully approved by the Venezuelan government. And the reason is that any currency other than the Venezuelan bolivar is going to be more widely received and used in Venezuela than the bolivar. So Bitcoin, Litecoin serve as alternative currencies there, as I'm sure the dollar does. And that's another issue for the United States. We heard Mnuchin the other day talking about how cash is not used to money launder, which is an absurd statement on its face. But we know that 2/3, or the Fed tells us, between half and 2/3 of all physical U.S. cash currency, about $1 trillion, resides overseas. And it's used as a medium of exchange or a store of value for those foreign nationals. You can find dollars when you go traveling in Argentina. You can find them in Asia. You can find them across Europe. People use the dollar, save the dollar, in many instances, either in addition to or as a replacement of their national currencies. So those dollars can be used in ways that the United States government, U.S. Treasury, really can't do anything about. I mean, they're over there and they're used. We're not talking about euro dollars. We're not talking about bank-issued dollars overseas, all the things that run through the SWIFT system. I'm just talking about the physical cash. So we have seen that Venezuela has tried this private cryptocurrency. Not quite, and the thing is, we really don't know whether Venezuela is able to use that currency, whether it's working or not, because it's outside of the U.S. purview, because it's not in the SWIFT system. So we're not sure if this Iranian thing will take off. It's very hard, since you can only know, I guess, through CIA intelligence, whether these currencies are gaining any traction or whether they're just wasting their time. But one thing, just a quick point before we move on to Russia. The interesting issue here is it is going to become increasingly difficult for the United States or any country to use sanctions that involve not allowing countries onto their payment systems, because payment systems are really just a technological advancement. And as we've seen with, this U.S. congressman has realized, his name is McHenry, he's a ranking member of the U.S. Financial Services Committee. He realizes that you really cannot stop the technology. You can ban it in the United States, but does that mean you can ban cryptocurrencies between Iran and Russia, Iran and Cuba? No, you really can't. So you could put sanctions on them, but if they wish to trade outside of the dollar, outside of the SWIFT system, they now have a way. Listen to what McHenry has to say here, the congressional testimony.
Blockchain technology is real, and Facebook's entry in this new world is just confirmation, albeit it's scale. The world that Satoshi Nakamoto, author of the Bitcoin white paper, envisioned, and others are building, is an unstoppable force. We should not attempt to deter this innovation, and governments cannot stop this innovation. And those that have tried have already failed.
Now, the reason he's right is actually, if you want to try to stop it in its form, that's not a smart way of going about it. In fact, the smartest thing the United States or any country can do that wants to maintain its technological hegemony would be to allow these technologies and to learn more and more about them, and to try to develop alternative technologies that can interfere, or technologies that can assist. I mean, what people are trying to put forth is that somehow that Bitcoin is this perfect medium of exchange. Well, maybe it's the best they've invented so far, but to just try to block it while other countries use it or use deviants of it, variants of it, improve on it, I think is a big mistake. Especially since, I mean, you're not going to be using the SWIFT system 30 years from now. That's probably a given technology. There's going to be ways of making faster payments, more secure transactions. Could be blockchain, could be something hasn't been invented yet. But I think it's a mistake just to try to protect the SWIFT system forever. It's probably smart to try to protect the SWIFT system while you're working on something else, but not protect the SWIFT system forever, because technology will eventually make the SWIFT system obsolete. All right, let's move on now to what's going on in Russia. And we're going to get to that story on the heist at the end. Not the heist, the confiscation of $5 million worth of gold in Heathrow Airport. All right, Russia. Russia, as we know, has been adding gold, adding gold, adding gold. And by the way, Russia has also talked about issuing a gold-backed cryptocurrency. We're not sure if that'll actually happen. It was a while back, the Moscow Times was talking about it. The central bank head, her name is Elvira something or other. She says they were also considering launching a digital currency. But she did note at the time they'd rather use national currencies. Now, that doesn't mean they can't use national currencies in digital form, cryptocurrency, crypto ruble, and so on. I think the issue with backing currencies is always an issue of trust in a third party, who's storing it, who's controlling it, can it be audited. I think if she was saying that it's preferable for countries just to use their national currencies, and if they can't work in the United States SWIFT system, that they can trade amongst themselves in their own currencies. The issue there is who wants the Iranian rial and really who wants the Russian ruble at this stage. Backing it would give the counterparty some confidence. Well, let's look at what Russia's been doing. Now, Russia's been adding gold at a furious pace, and we've talked about this. We cover it every month. You can see here, I've been covering this for about 5-6 years. They have added 1,000+ tons of gold, almost 1,000 tons of gold, since we started tracking this in June of 2015. And it's 927 tons you see on the chart. They now have 2,208 tons of gold. That's worth about $100 billion now. It's a lot of cash for you and me, but it's not really a lot in the grand scheme of things. But it is a lot of gold. Here's another way of looking at it. They just recently added 600,000 ounces of gold, about 21 tons of gold just in June. And you see it's been pretty consistent. I've been actually covering back since June 2014. Some months they'll add over 1 million ounces, but generally, given other than a month or two they might take off after they've reached their annualized goals, they've been adding a lot of gold to reserves. And let me give you pull out a bigger, broader picture of it over time. This chart shows you how much gold they've been adding or subtracting since 1994. Now, in the late 90s, they're actually net sellers of gold. Russia is a major gold producer, third largest in the world. In recent years, they have been taking most of the gold that they mine and putting it straight into the Central Bank of Russia's reserves. The last 2 years, 86% of their 300+ tons of gold that they mine have gone into the Russian Central Bank. You can see 270 tons in 2018, 224 tons in 2017. This year, they're a little slow. It looks like 96 tons so far. If they continue at this pace, it'll be the lowest amount that they've added either since 2016, 2014. But who knows? They could add 1 million ounces in a couple of months in the coming months, and we could be back on a pace for well over 200. But right now, Russia's on pace for about 200 tons of gold added, which is still a very large amount. You can see they weren't really adding 200 tons of gold a year until 2015, and they've been pretty consistent ever since. And let's just take a look at the gold holding nations, and we'll let you go. These are the central banks, not how much gold is in the country. A lot of people out there, they constantly confuse China's gold with the People's Bank of China's gold, official amounts, unofficial amounts. These are probably pretty reliable numbers. Yes, none of them are audited, but these are what the central banks themselves say that they hold. In the case of the United States, it's not the central bank. The Fed does not hold the U.S. gold. That's gold held by the Treasury at various locations in the United States, the largest being about 4,200 tons at Fort Knox, and then there's some at West Point, there's some in Colorado, there's some scattered around the United States, but U.S. gold, 8,133 tons at the U.S. Treasury. Germany claims to have 3,370 tons. That's the Bundesbank of Germany. IMF, which has about 2,814 tons of gold. That's gold that they collect in order to become, from other countries, in order to become members of the IMF. Italy and France have about 2,400 tons. And Russia now, the Central Bank of Russia has 2,208 tons. People's Bank of China, about 1,900 tons. Switzerland, 1,040. Japan, 765 tons. Reserve Bank of India has added about 80 tons in the last year or so. They're at 620 tons. And the Central Bank of the Netherlands, 612 tons. Some of that repatriated from the New York Fed over the last 3 or 4 years. All right, everybody, that's about it for today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing to Smaulgld.com. Make sure you subscribe to and click the bell on this BitChute. And then also, please make sure, if you're enjoying these podcasts, that you consider donating to Smaulgld.com via PayPal, becoming a Smaulgld patron. And on PayPal, you can make a recurring donation as well, or becoming one of the Mug Club members on Smaulgld Subscribe Star, or you can always donate to Smaulgld via Bitcoin or Litecoin. There it is on your screen by holding up your phone to the QR codes that you see there. Or you can send checks or items of value or cash to Smaulgld LLC, P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire 03820. And of course, you can visit the Smaulgld store or Smaulgld.com and pick up your Smaulgld game-changing mugs. We have beer mugs, we have beer steins, we have coffee mugs. Mugs are real wealth, so make sure you get a Smaulgld mug. The Smaulgld Classic and Smaulgld Super Classic mugs. The Super Classic is the one with the red. Smaulgld Classic is the one with the white. Those are delivered directly from Smaulgld headquarters with a signed note. All other mugs are delivered through the Smaulgld store. We have t-shirts there. So visit Smaulgld.com or below this BitChute. All the links are there. Thank you very much.